So the next exercise, it says forearm on the worksheet that I'm referring to. And the forearm is from your elbow to your wrist basically. And it's just this motion of opening and closing, probably the most commonly used bow stroke in violin playing. And some people really have a hard time being able to separate, opening at the elbow and closing and not moving this part of the arm. And that's why I'm standing near the wall here, because this is a great example where you put your arm against the wall, and here's your arm in an L shape or a right angle, and we're just going to open and close in this fashion. And having the wall here really helps people get in touch with not moving this part of your arm, but just the forearm. So let's go back. We have bow thumb balance, core fingers, bow hand, okay? I'm going to go to the A string because I think you'll see me better, so that would be the arm level change, going to the A string, okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up to the wall here so that from my shoulder to my elbow is against the wall, and I'm just going to pump that forearm. On the worksheet you'll find all sorts of directions for how long to play things, how many times. It'll just kind of walk you through a practice scenario for doing these exercises. Okay? So that's the forearm. You can obviously do it on each string. Okay? And some people have a hard time knowing when they're at the right angle of their arm. So a little, excuse me, I bumped my bow there, a little tape or sometimes a post-it on your bow here really helps people visually to know when to stop at that point where their arm makes a right angle. Okay? So now we're going to move on to the next exercise, which has to do with getting from that point to the frog, from the middle of the bow to the frog. And we're going to go back to our upper arm. So far the upper arm has changed strings. Now it's going to go from the middle to the frog in this fashion. Okay? And I like to explain this action in a very common way, which is you're mad at someone, so you're going to elbow them, or you're going to joke with them, or you're just going to give them a good elbow. Okay? And that's the motion that we're using. Okay? So once again we have the wall. So let's go back to, here's our right angle. Now we're against the wall from the elbow to the shoulder. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go up bow. So the elbow's going to come away from the wall and then come back and hit it. Come away and come back and hit it. And while I'm standing here at the wall, if you wanted to combine, we're talking about the lower half right now of the bow, going from the frog to the middle of the bow, from the frog to the middle. Now we're in the middle to tip. Middle to tip. So you can combine the whole thing in this fashion. I like to tease saying it's Diane Allen's robotic violin playing. But it really helps to think about what your skeleton is doing when you're playing the violin. What are the bones doing? Okay, so you have this and then this. Okay? Now, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's basically how we're going to get from the middle to the frog. Okay? So I just did a shortcut and I shouldn't have. So here we go. We should go both on balance, core fingers, do all your fingers. Okay? Now I'm going to go to the A string so you can see me better, so I'm going to have to lower my arm. Okay? So if I just swing this part of my arm, my bow is going to go horribly crooked. Okay? That's because the arm alone can't do this job. Okay? So what we're going to do at the same time is the wrist. If you imagine the wrist coming up to touch your nose like this, in this fashion, as you're moving your arm forward, you're bringing your wrist up and back and up and back. And there's one more detail here that we can include, which would be as you're going up, you're going to curl the bow hair so the bow hair looks at you, and then it'll uncurl all by itself. You don't have to worry about it. I guarantee it'll uncurl all by itself. So here we go. We're in the middle of the bow. We have our both unbalanced core fingers, bow hand. Go to A string, okay? I'm going to imagine my wrist coming to my nose, and this is going to swing forward. I'm going to back up to the wall here. So my elbow's going to now come away from the wall and go back to the wall. Once again, if you follow all the directions on the sheet, you'll be playing each of the strings repeatedly to practice these exercises. So here would be, here's the whole bow. So I'm going to stop in the middle. So here's frog to middle, middle to tip, back to the frog, okay? So the upper arm takes, like I said before, it's got a little more involvement going